Those guys came here 24 years ago. Those guys, the legendary Steve Fisher, who should be in the College Basketball Hall of Fame, and the current head coach, Brian Dutcher, whose record is now 149-46. They came here 24 years ago. When I first came here, Aztec basketball was played in dingy and dark Peterson Gym. Then it was played at the sports arena where there were empty seats everywhere and nobody really came nor paid attention nor cared. Then they built Viejas and it took them time to fix it. Steve Fisher came in, looked at a team that had gone 4-22 and said, whoa, had to change the culture. Went 5-23 his first year, went 0-14 in the conference. Think about that. We're not talking that the Mountain West or the WAC was a power conference at that point in time, but he slowly built it. And he built it, didn't open very many doors in terms of high school recruits, but he built it with some transfers. The first big transfer he got was Tony Bland from Syracuse University, who came from a really good program. He was an LA kid. He knew Fisher from when Fisher tried to recruit him. So he landed, he was the first one, and slowly but surely they'd get a Division I transfer every year. And then they started to open some doors, not so much in San Diego. I mean, the early group of Aztec recruits in San Diego were probably marginal players. Joe McNall, a 6'9" center, was here for a couple of years. Tony Clark played here before he became a pro baseball player, and then he got hurt. But they started to make advances first in the Inland Empire. They started to recruit up in Riverside. And then they kind of spilled over, and because of Tony Bland's arrival, they started to knock on doors and get some kids to look at them from Los Angeles. And it got better and better and better. And then they started to get bigger names. And Steve Fisher took JUCO recruits, and he took some D1 transfers who'd come and sit a year. And slowly it built. Steve Fisher retires. Here comes Brian Dutcher. Brian Dutcher does the exact same thing. Now, they are starting to get some 4- and 5-star recruits that come in the front door. Haven't been able to get really anybody from San Diego to look at him seriously yet. Now, maybe that changes things. But they've continued the pipeline from the Inland Empire. They've done stuff in Los Angeles. They've got contacts. They've started to do things out of Oakland. And now they're getting Division I transfers from all over the country. You know, Jaden Ledee is the latest one. He came from Ohio State and then TCU. So now they're starting to get a compilation of really talent. And I think that the best quote of all time as it relates to anybody at San Diego State, whether it's coaching basketball or coaching Aztec football, is coach them up. Because you get them, you mold them, and you make them really good players, and you have really good teams. So what San Diego State has done is probably a once-in-a-lifetime thing. You know, they've got 7 seniors, graduate students, or COVID-eligible players on the roster. They all vacate after next Monday night. So there will be a rebuild. There will be a change. So this is a one-time opportunity for this program to sell the nation as to who they are, and they've done it. But you go back to Steve Fisher, 5-22 his first year and 0-14 in the conference. That was then. Look at where we are now. Wow.
I mean, I remember back in the 90s that there was a lot of people here locally that were not happy with Steve Fisher being hired because of what happened in Michigan. And a lot of people said, you know, he was just made the scapegoat, but still some people, you know, were holier than thou and didn't want him. But they were considering Jerry Tarkanian for that job back then too. But look how it turned out, and look how this thing has been built. And, you know, it just seems like we just keep taking steps up every 5 years. It moves up a notch. It keeps ratcheting up, and they've done it the right way with all of really good kids, really good recruits. You don't hear any controversies, anything crazy coming out of this program. And now they're at the Final Four. They're on the big stage. They're going to be now a recruiting hotbed. This is going to, I don't think this is a once in a lifetime. I think we're just getting started here.
Well, it's quite a mix of players they have on the roster, and we're going to talk specifically about certain groupings of players and their responsibility and what they've accomplished, etc. But you just look at what these two coaches have accomplished and what they've laid in place and the foundation that now exists at San Diego State. And maybe this becomes the catalyst for the Pac-12 to really look at San Diego State and says, yes, UCLA basketball is leaving, UCLA football is gone, Southern Cal is exiting, but maybe Aztec basketball replaces the UCLA Bruins in terms of notoriety around the nation. So maybe this is the jumping off point to go to the new conference. What the program has accomplished is just amazing, and I love the chant. Those drunken fraternity guys at San Diego State that came up with the chant, "I believe, I believe we will win," and then the building erupts and goes crazy. It's
Mhm.
just a unique environment, and the fans with the signs and the costumes and the outfits and the big heads. And I
Yeah.
just saw a picture of me
Yeah.
with one of the members of the show holding a big head. It wound up on Twitter. I just couldn't. I'd not
It's
seen
great.
that in a long period of time. So the environment and the atmosphere is just absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, it's so fun to go to the games. I like when Steve Fisher came here, I adopted the Aztecs as my team because I went to UCSD, and when I was there in the 80s, they were D3, and then in the 90s they were D2. But so I've been like really invested in this team. I've gone to like usually 3 or 4 games a year. I watched every game religiously on television. And so to see this program build is really, really special. And I think now we're kind of gotten beyond now the regular sports fans. We're, kind of crossing over into the general public.
It's the thing to do, place to be.
It is, and you go in the grocery store and everyone's talking Aztecs, wearing Aztec gear. I mean, this is special. It's bringing San Diego together. And we've had so many decades of misery in this town. This is a time for us to celebrate.
As I like to say, and I sat one game. I got invited to sit in the end zone seats with the show just
Mhm.
to experience it. This
Oh,
is
good
when
for
I
you.
was working at CW6. We brought a camera crew and we interviewed the student body. Those fraternity guys got a lot of spare time on their hands. And when they have a few Heinekens, they get really creative with the signs and the costumes. It is just so cool. And I always thought the Cameron crazies at Duke and at Wake Forest, I thought that was the epitome of student body support. These guys have gone over that wall.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great environment, and I mean, the one part of it is I always love the pregame leading up to the
Mhm.
opening tip because that's when they do the "I believe" chant. That's when they do the pregame introductions, with the lights and the show. It's such a great environment at Viejas Arena, and it's great to see where this program has come from. But I think this is an example of you've talked about how facilities define your program, define your city. This is an example of build it and they will come. And back then it was Cox Arena, and that really started this whole thing.